predicted that by 2030 we will have 80 billion agents working. Less than 10 billion humans and 80 billion agents. So the world will have machines and will have humans, and they will be working together, and that is what we call the hybrid world. It's a world made of machines and humans working together. I'll tell you, and at my company, I have an AI agent. I have actually multiple agents. I have an agent that manages other agents in my company. And they work with the humans. So every job we have, we lay out the process. Some pieces of the process are done by humans, some pieces are done by machines, and they talk to each other. And that's the hybrid world we're getting into. And it's real. This is happening as we speak. Of course, now let's wear our Christian hats for a minute. What does this mean for humanity? Because for the first time, we now have a man-created thing that is able to reason and to make stories, to make decisions. I don't know if you're tracking, but on the internet there are now tens of new religions, all created by AI, and each of these religions has holy books written by AI, holy with quotes, books. They have their own Bibles that are generated by AI, and they're able to tell AI what kind of Bible they want, what kind of voice they want, and people are following these religions. So the capacity of the machine to now create stories and worlds and new history is massive. It's massive, right? It has good uses, but it could also have bad uses. So I'll finish the AI bit, and of course I'll open it up for questions later if you have any questions, by telling you that where I am focused today is on helping figure out the governance of AI. How do we govern this power that is about to come? In the UAE, I was just in Abu Dhabi, in Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia. They're creating a minister, wazir dawla, a minister in the government that will be a machine, right? And they hired McKinsey to build it. So I met the people at McKinsey and they showed me the wazir. It's a whole new concept of how governments will run, right, with machines. So we're entering the stage where I think it's very important for us, people who hopefully have the ability but also the wisdom, to step back and say, how do we govern all of this? And there are three ways to govern this immense power called AI coming. The first, which is what everyone talks about, is governments themselves. Governments stepping in, putting regulatory frameworks, putting enforcement rules that say, if you don't do this, I will punish you. So that's what governments are able to do with the law, with policies, and with norms. I think this is needed, and unfortunately, the US used to be the global leader in setting governance for technology. I used to be quite involved in that with the prior administration, but unfortunately, under the current administration, we have almost zero regulatory environment. There's all the experts I knew in the White House and in NTIA are gone. There's just no experts that really can build policies around that. So other governments are stepping in, like the Europeans. Even the Chinese have put some big regulatory frameworks. But this is a space that I used to be very involved in, but I'm no longer involved in. But I'm just telling you that there's a whole set of activities around governmental regulation. The second one, which is important to us as Christians, is self-regulation, corporate self-regulation, which means I am the CEO of, I don't know if you know the company called Anthropic. They have an LLM called Claude. The CEO of Anthropic left OpenAI, ChatGPT, to create Anthropic in order to create more self-governance of his models. So he acknowledged that ChatGPT has almost no safety. And he said, I need, as a leader of a company, to introduce more self-regulation. Now, this works, by the way, at least in my experience, when CEOs, leaders of companies say, I need to self-regulate, it's the right thing to do. That also works. But that needs to be fueled. And how do you fuel that? You fuel it through CEOs, good CEOs talking to other CEOs, saying, I did this, I think you should consider that. And I think some of this is happening in places like Davos, where all the CEOs meet in a couple of weeks every year in Switzerland. These are the places where the top CEOs in the world come together and they compare notes. Like, what are you doing? How is it working for you? Maybe I should do that too. That's the second one. The third one, which is where I'm still involved, because I'm no longer involved in the first two, I used to be. Now I'm involved in this third leg of governance. And I hope you appreciate why I'm only involved in this, and that's really building governance from the bottom up into the hearts of the people who are building all these things. So many of you raised your hand, you're in AI or in engineering. Each one of you, me included, have a responsibility. And that responsibility must be awakened. The young engineer who's being told at Google to do X or to do Y, he or she also has a responsibility. They cannot shirk that responsibility and say, "Ana mali, hum قالوا لي, I should just X." They should stand up and do it. Now, for those, anybody here a physician or a doctor other than Abuna? Oh no, we have a couple of doctors. So if you've ever attended the ceremony when a physician starts school, what do? Do you all know what they do? They raise their hand and they take an oath called the Hippocratic Oath. The Hippocratic Oath is an oath to do no harm, whereby each doctor at least makes a conscious decision and an oath in front of his colleagues or her colleagues and says, I shall do no harm. Now, this oath has been going on for hundreds of years. And most physicians I talk to say, yes, there is no enforcement of the oath, but it does wake something in you. It just makes you conscious that you have a responsibility. Now, doctors need to do that because doctors make decisions with their patients when they're sometimes alone, and these can be life or death decisions. And that's why this oath, which was created by a Greek physician called Hippocrates, he created it, was to help doctors understand their responsibility. I today believe that most people building AI could harm many, many more people with their inventions if they're not conscious what they're doing. And so, for the last year, we've been working with a group of people to introduce an AI oath, similar to the Hippocratic Oath, so that every student entering a computer science or engineering program in the world will now be asked to take that oath as well. And it took time to build it. I actually employed professors of philosophy and theology to work on it for the last year because it has to reflect a certain ethos, a certain understanding of the technology, but also how the technology is being used. So we're working on that now, and we're meeting with presidents of universities to see if we can introduce it. So these are the three ways I can tell you I think are needed. And I don't think one negates the other or renders another one unnecessary. They're all necessary. We need governments to intervene. We need leaders of companies to have the integrity and the rectitude to do the right thing. And we need individuals to also stand up and do the right thing in their work. All three need to happen. So that's a little bit about AI. Let me switch to a more general topic about work and being Christians at work. So many of you work already. Some are looking for the next thing they do after college. I will start by telling you a quote that shook me when I was young, your age. There's a very famous German philosopher called Nietzsche. And Nietzsche said, God is dead because Christians have killed him. Think about what that says. That says that God lives through us as well. We have a responsibility at our work, in the places we function, to bring God. Because if we don't, he will be not there, not present. You know, I once mentioned in the class upstairs for the youth, maybe 20 years ago, that sometimes we wear our Christianity like the white coat of doctors. So Ihab is right here. He looks pretty good in his casual wear. But Ihab, if you've seen him at UCLA, he's wearing a very formal white coat. But when he's on the street or he's with us, he looks like any of us. But when he's in a white coat, you know he's a doctor. Sometimes we do the same with our Christianity. We wear it on Sundays. We wear it at church. It's beautiful. I'm here. I'm part of this community. We walk out of that door and we take out that white coat and we're one of many. Christianity should not be worn and taken off. In fact, if anything, we have a responsibility, so Nietzsche is not right, to take Christianity out that door and to bring it to the world. The world needs us to be these witnesses. And so work is, especially in America where we work so hard and we put so much time in our work, work is a fertile environment to bring God to the world. And so we have a very personal responsibility, each of us, in our jobs. And being Christian at work is not about doing anything. It's about being Christian. It's not about doing anything. When I sold my second company to IBM, it took me 1.5 years to get that sale done. And on the eve of the sale, literally the night before they were coming to take the keys of the company, I got an email from them basically saying, we would like you to fire 1/3 of your company, and here are the names of the people you should let go. And I said, are you kidding me? We've been working, all of us, on this for 1.5 years. We have 128 people. How am I going to let these people go on the eve of an acquisition? These people were all looking forward to become IBM employees in the morning at 8 when the acquisition was to happen. And they said, you need to let them all go. And here are the names. And you cannot say we asked you to. It should look like your action. I give you this as an example of moments when you're at work and you have to make decisions. You know, how do I behave? What is the right thing to do? You know, I needed to care for the employees who will be left and go to IBM and their livelihood. And I needed to care for the people who worked 5-6 years to help me build the company that is causing it to be sold, and I'm about to walk them out the door on the eve of the acquisition. So I can tell you, if you want later, what happened, but I'm just bringing up to you how every day at work, whether you're in a leadership position or just in a rank and file position, you make decisions, you face decisions. And how do you react either brings God to that situation or makes the situation void of him and his presence. How many people have watched The Wizard of Oz? Yeah, the movie. Okay, so you all know what happens when Dorothy shows up. Yeah, the movie's black and white, and then Dorothy shows up, what happens? The movie's colored. I always love that moment because that's exactly the difference between a job, a work environment that is void of the Lord's presence, and a place where he is present. And the difference is stark. You remember when Dorothy showed up, the movie went from all black and white to all colors. That's the imagery that I always keep in my head when I'm blessed to be in a job or in a work environment, am I coloring that place, or am I part of the black and white scene? Am I changing it? Am I really bringing the Lord to color that place with His Spirit or not? I'll mention to you 3 people that have done this beautifully. St. Maurice. St. Maurice was a commander, a soldier, a Coptic soldier that was leading a Roman legion. And he went to Switzerland. The Romans sent him there. And his first assignment was to do what? To kill Christians. And he said, no, I'm not going to do that. And they said, but you're a soldier. This is a command. You kill the Christians. Any small Christian communities here, you need to get rid of them. And he said, no, I'm not going to do that. And he stood up for what he believed as a commander of a legion, and he was martyred as a result. He lost his own life, but he stood up for his beliefs. And today he's honored. One of the most beautiful cities in Switzerland is St. Moritz. If you haven't been there, it's all in his honor, and he had a beautiful statue of St. Moritz there. So that's a person who wasn't a bishop, he wasn't a priest, he was a commander of a Roman legion, a soldier of Rome, and he stood and did the right thing. Another person you all know very well is St. Verena. St. Verena also wasn't a nun, or she was a nurse. She was a nurse who, in her daily job as a nurse, transformed how she delivered her service. And look at all of us today remembering her with our, not just many Verenas in our church, but also as a beacon of a woman who really brings charity to the world, right? And I read today, I didn't know much about him, about St. Joseph of Alexandria, who was a merchant, a very wealthy merchant in Alexandria in the early years in the 4th century, and how he became a saint because he stayed as a merchant. He was a very wealthy merchant, but he gave a lot of his money to the needy in the city and took care of them. I'm just giving you these examples because even in our church, in the Synaxar, we read the names of many people who did not necessarily choose the monastic path, who chose to be in the world as wealthy merchants, as nurses, as commanders of armies, and they became saints because they brought the Lord into their work. Today we have that same responsibility. I'm going to give you a few examples from my own life that I've watched, and then we can open it up for questions. I have 2 employees. Both of them, I won't mention their names, but they're both atheists. They don't believe in God. I hired them both in the late 80s, and they're still with me. One is a lawyer, one is a technologist. And I brought them into a discussion on a business. They helped me with that business to improve it. And then one day, a year later, we sold that business. It was another company that owned it. And we all got checks because the company sold and did very well. All 3 of us got big checks. And the 2 gentlemen I just mentioned to you called me and they said, we can't take this money. And I said, why? Why can't you take this money? You remember a year and a half ago, you gave us some ideas on how to improve their systems and this and that. And they said, yes, but we can't take this money. I said, why? They said, we found out that this company manages, amongst many things, all the phone booths in jails. And I said, and? And they said, do you know, Fadi, that these phone booths charge inmates $5, $6 a minute to call their families? I said, I didn't know that, but I'm glad you found out. They said, well, we can't take that money. So I was frankly taken aback that they researched, found out what the company does. They found that what they do is frankly, obviously they're extorting these people who have no choice. They have to call their kids or their families, and they're charging them a huge fee. And they took the money and asked me to give it to charity. They wouldn't touch it. This doesn't happen a lot in the world of money. And when people do things like this, it really makes you step back and think, what drove them? What are the values that made them think this way? And they both grew up Christians, but they left the church. But something was left in them that allowed them to make that decision. And I deeply respect when people do that. And I hope that when people do these things, they reconnect with the Spirit of the Lord, even for them, because that's a very courageous decision. I'll tell you about something that happened to me. In my own company, I was offered to buy a company that, believe it or not, it's a huge company in the US. They pick up the bodies of dead opioid victims. So when somebody overdoses at home, the cops do not touch the body. They call this company. And this company shows up, takes the body out, cleans the scene, etc. And this was a company, close to $600 million in revenues. I mean, big company. And so, of course, at the firm, we were studying, should we buy them, should we not buy them? And I kept telling my team, how is this company going to grow? Because when we buy companies, we buy them to grow. I mean, are we going to pray for more opioid use? I mean, how is this company going to grow? And what is going to stop this company to start lobbying the government to even make opioid use more lax or more accessible? So these are decisions that we face every day, and we need to stop and measure ourselves. And frankly, another firm bought that company and ended up making 3 times their money, so they did extremely well. And some of my partners called me and said, we could have, we could have made all the money. But standing by what we believe in with integrity for the right reasons actually affects people. And now many people in my own firm actually check deals before they even bring them to me on their own. They just found out the company we were looking at was overcharging their customers, and their customers were not paying attention, and they made a lot of money on that. Of course, they told me that we passed on it immediately when we found out. So when we plant these seeds, we could change the work environment. We could create new ways for people to think. I will mention him because I just discovered something about him, but one of the things that Christians should be able to do at work here in this country more than others is to maintain a certain balance. They just did a survey today in the New York Times, and when they asked Americans compared to 30 years ago, what is it that they love the most? You know what ranked number 1 compared to 30 years ago? 53% of respondents, they love making money. They love to make money. 30 years ago, it was 10, 15%. So we're in an environment, we're in a society where making money is extremely central to how the system works. Unfortunately, some people are even measured by that. Unfortunately, sometimes we measure ourselves by that, how much money I am worth, how much I made. And I think there's nothing wrong with money. Money is good. Money is something that comes to you as a gift. But the question is money what's driving you, or are you the one in charge of the money that God entrusts you with? That relationship, that equation. So balance is very important, which means you don't put everything into just making money. However, you love it. I love my job, by the way. I mean, I really enjoy my work. But I also need to find a balance. I cannot just be all work. I used to tell young college kids, you're not, that if all you do is work, it's almost like somebody who goes to the gym and only works one muscle. They go every day to the gym and they work one bicep. Imagine how they look like after a few months. They look like a monster. And if all we do is just work and make money, and that's our sole intention, we become social monsters. And frankly, we miss the opportunity to live a balanced Christian life. The reason I mentioned my dad, because I was in Cairo recently with my brother. I took him there for his 70th birthday as a trip, and he had not been in Egypt in 50 years. So he told me, can we go to where Dad used to live in Cairo? So we went to Dahir, to Fagala, this area, and we were walking. And then we remembered that he had started in his home a small jam'iyya called Jam'iyyat Thamarat al-Tawfiq. You know, it was a small jam'iyya. He started in the 1940s. And so we're walking and we see Jam'iyyat Thamarat al-Tawfiq. So of course we went in. We knocked on the door and the nun opened the door. And she doesn't know us. So we explained our father. She said, and then she said, Abukum Banu Chehade, yes, we have his picture. She had this picture on the wall. She said, he's the one who started this. And we didn't know. He never even told us that it's still there. And then she told us, but this Jam'iyya now has an orphanage and it has a school. And so we spent 4 hours going around Fagala visiting one center after the other. All started in my father's living room when he was in his 20s. So the fruit of every seed you put when you say, and he in his 20s, he needed to work. And he was a hardworking person. He was a merchant. He was very engaged in the business world. But he did these things as well. You know, he started the first orphanage in Africa when he was in Ethiopia. Until now, it's the first girls' orphanage in Addis Ababa. He started it when he was 30 there. So even though he was very busy, he was very much a business person all the time, but he found the time to do these things on the side. So whatever your career is, wherever you're ending up doing, however busy you are, leave some room to plant these seeds. You don't know how they will grow and what they will achieve. Find the time. And don't say, I'm just busy, I have to get it done. Of course, we're all busy, but make the time for these things. You know, most humans are driven to get two things. That's human nature. Power and admiration. If you net it out, most humans are looking for power and admiration. And if those two things that attract you to run fast and to work hard and to make more money, to be more powerful, to be more admired in your environment, in your community, if these things are not coming from a good place, they become evil. But if power and admiration come from a fulfilled heart, full of Christ, then they actually become good because you use them to advance God's work. But don't let power and admiration, which drives our nature as humans, take over from nothingness. If you do not have an abundance of Christ in you in this world, you will be driven by power and admiration, and you will lose the plot. And it's very easy to happen, by the way. Very easy to happen. I left a job in 2017 where I came to the point where I felt the power in my hands was so big that I had to leave. So I resigned. I literally resigned on the spot. I was in Morocco in a big meeting and I told the board, I'm leaving. The next morning I was gone. Because when power starts getting to you and you feel enormous admiration because of the power you have, if you are not able to really place this in Christ and put it to work for Him, you could lose the plot. So be careful with these things. Let's all be vessels of the Lord, you know, not just driven by the world and the things that the world drives us to. Let's be vessels like Mary. And let's do as St. John of the Cross. He was a Spanish saint in the Catholic Church. He always used to say this cool thing. He used to say, where there is no God, put God, and there will be God. So when we are at work and we feel the lack of presence of the Lord, we have the responsibility to put Him in there. And then guess what? He will be there. So where there is no God or where there is no love, put love, and there will be love. We have a personal responsibility to do that, each of us. I'll take questions. Besides internships, what else do you have? We can talk about these too. Any questions on AI or on work and putting God in our work? Who wants to be the first?
Oh, I was just going to ask you to continue.
I don't know if she needs to. I can repeat your question because apparently there's some.
I was going to finish the story of the decisions that you
The IBM one?
Yes.
One of the hardest moments for me, because frankly, the amount of work these people had done for years to get to that point was enormous. And we all had already celebrated. I mean, the deal was done, and these guys literally show up with a truck at 8 a.m. in the morning. They remove the sign off of our building. They put IBM. I mean, it was all set to happen. Everybody knew in the morning, they take your badge, they give you, it was all set. And then boom, the eve before. So I took the management team, my top team, I took them to my office and I said, this is what I just got. What do we do? And they said, well, you let them go. I mean, what can you do? You have no choice. We have to finish this deal. It's the other 2/3 of the company need it. We need it. So we let them go. I said, but we have got to do something. I mean, we were not even allowed to talk to them. They sent their own HR people. They said, you just give them the notice and you tell them they have 15 minutes to pack their office and you walk them out of the building, because we were developing software, so there was a lot of intellectual property as well. So I told my team, listen, if we can't talk to them, if we can't at least look them in the eye and say, John, I'm sorry, you have to go, then at least let's be present. Let's not go hide in our management offices and let the HR people do the work, the firing. Let's be present with each one of them. So I insisted that the management team actually walk with every person to their office, stand there. We couldn't talk to them. Literally, legally, we were not allowed to talk to them, but accompany them, walk them to the car, help them with their boxes and to get to the car. And then, as soon as the company was sold in the morning, I made an informal committee of all my management team, and we helped each one of the people who were let go get a job. It took us months, but we worked with each one of them until we found them a job. And we couldn't still tell them why they're out. So we had to respect the legal curtain, as they call them. But we helped all of them find jobs. It was all we could do, but frankly, it was very transformative for me, for my team, because we learned that even in these situations where the law and the system here kind of puts you in a straitjacket, even just walking them each to their car, and some of them were crying, and we cried with them, just being with them in that moment of sufferance and hurt was important, as opposed to hiding and saying, I can't face this. We had to face it with them. So that's how it ended. And I rehired many of them, by the way, in my next company. When I left IBM 3 years later and I hired some of them back. So, other questions? Yes. Okay.
To what extent do you think that AI can be a part of the church? I know there's a lot of people who really hate it. Some people are okay with it because it's a tool for translation, for example.
Yeah, the question is, how much do we see AI kind of in the church as part of our church context? First, how do we deal with it as Christians? I mean, some of you here are either soon will have kids. How do we guide our kids with AI one day? How do we bring it into our families? And frankly, how does the church overall address the point of AI? Abuna knows that I had the privilege of advising Pope Francis on AI. I used to spend time with him talking about AI and how the Catholic Church will deal with it. So the perspective that I have is that I think that the church in general has to deal with the fact that many of our parishioners, many of the people who sit in these pews every Sunday, are going to face very daunting life decisions in the next 5 years. And so the church, at least Pope Francis, who was, as you know, from the social justice side of the Catholic Church, He was very focused as to how will the church help all these people who will suddenly be either jobless or struggling at work. And that affects families, it affects livelihood, it affects a lot of things. So he was very focused on that aspect. And I think, by the way, he is right that the church is not a job placement center, but we should be aware that many of our fellow parishioners will not be as lucky as others. And we need, as a community, to be thoughtful and to be an oasis for people to find some solace or some help as AI starts really nibbling at a lot of jobs. By the way, a lot of the AI jobs that will be lost will not be like the first industrial revolution for workers, people, putting together machines. It will be mostly for knowledge workers. I mean, right now, young graduates out of Harvard, I get many calls from young people out of great schools in law, in accounting, in finance even. It's getting harder to find entry-level jobs. So it's going to get tough, and I think the church needs to be somewhat present as people face these difficult times. The second thing is, how will the church deal with the flood of untruths that AI will create? That's a big issue, because AI is trained on a set of information, and if that information is loose, it doesn't have what we call a knowledge graph to control it, we will get a lot of untruths. And untruths beget untruths. So AI could create something, and then it could build on it, and it builds on it, and by the time the seventh untruth is being said, nobody can create the provenance to where it started, and no one knows what is true and what is not untrue. So we're going to enter a world where knowing what is truthful will become harder. And I think the church has a big role in helping us discern and have some level of, because discernment comes from inside. And I think the church has a role in helping people figure out how to find the truth, because it'll be harder. It will get very hard to find the truth. The inventor of the internet, Vint Cerf, who's a friend of mine, always tells me the biggest worry he has, he's 80 now, the biggest worry he has is the level of falsehood that will be now everywhere. And that's a big issue. That, again, I believe an enlightened church cannot walk away from that. I think an enlightened church should be leaning into that. I'll give you an example of one of my nephews in my family is launching a company that is focused on a Christian LLM, okay? And it's called Truthfully. So the idea of Truthfully is all the information in the knowledge graph is derived from Christian sources, so that when you're asking that LLM questions about anything, it is not just about religion, but about anything. It is actually constraining the knowledge graph too. So there will be efforts to try and help with the untruths. And I was in Rome actually in December, and I met with the head of communications for the Vatican to talk about that. And they're extremely focused on this area of basically creating knowledge areas that are well managed, not restricted, but well managed. Curated is the word. They're curated. And I think our church should be involved in something like this. I hope so, because it's going to run out of our control soon if we don't step in. So I think we should. It's an anxious time. You know, I can't hide that, because I know what can happen. So it's a time where people of goodwill need to be alert and involved. We can't just wash our hands and say, AI is great. I ask ChatGPT any question, it answers. That's a lame answer. We need to be more involved and aware and engaged as an institution, as the church, but also as individual Christians. We should be. So.
What do you advise younger youth, not in college, working now, who have probably like 3-4 more years before entering the work field? They're likely not going to have any jobs. What do you tell them to do?
So let's say you're in first year of law school or something like that. It's now, the data's out. In the last 2 years, it's been very hard for young law school graduates to get jobs. Very hard. And I can tell you why it's hard if you don't know. I mean, in my firm, for example, we're an investment firm, private equity firm. We have a system we built called Petra, and that system does the work of my smartest, absolutely smartest grads out of MIT or Harvard that used to take them 2 to 3 weeks. It does it far better in 14, 15 minutes. Okay? Like if I ask Petra, I want you to go look at this company, tell me everything about it, tell me about its background, the reputations of all the people involved in it, check their financials, check their competition, give me how they can beat the competition in France. I can ask it 20 questions, and in 14, 15 minutes, it'll give me a phenomenal report that would have taken my smartest guys weeks to do. So, yes, it will be harder for people who, knowledge workers especially, law, finance, accounting, even GPs, you know. A lot of the work that is done to collect a lot of information and make decisions will be done a lot better and faster. What do I advise them is your question. What do I suggest?
Juniors in high school.
Yeah.
Like college for them will not be the same as what we know today.
Yeah. The good news is if you are a sophomore or a junior in high school, the good news is you have 2 to 3 years to see how the AI world shakes, because it's just starting. I do not envy high school juniors or seniors because this is happening like right now. Colleges have not adjusted yet to the change. Universities, so they're still recruiting you to study degrees that I think will not be very useful as we go forward. So if you're early in high school, good news. You have a couple of years for us to figure out how. In technology, there's always a curve. We're literally at the cusp. We're just beginning this curve. We're not even up yet. We're just about to go up. So AI is very, very, very nascent right now, but the impact is so huge that I think we're going to see a curve go up like this. So if I'm a junior or senior right now, I would, one of the godfathers of AI, Jeff Hinton, was recently interviewed. He said, I advised all my nephews to become plumbers. I'm not going to do that. I don't think you should become plumbers. But I think he was joking, and this is Jeff Hinton. This is one of the founders of AI. Because any job that is, has a lot of manual work is right now a very safe job. Anything in the arts, anything in machinery, robots will become very common. The first company in the Bay Area to sell home robots, X1, they announced their robot Neo. They have so many orders, it'll take them 5 years to fulfill just the orders they received in the last few months. So there will become a lot of robots. What does that mean? People need to fix the robots. They're going to break down. So any work that has a physical component will be safer, let's say. In the intellectual work, my recommendation to young people right now is to seek degrees that help them talk to AI, work with AI. An example of that is obviously data analytics, for example. People who are studying data science or data analytics. These require capabilities to talk to AI engines. Anybody learning how to talk to an AI engine will have a safe job. I mean, in technical terms, we call these guys prompt engineers. They're learning how to prompt the engine, how to engage the engine. And this will require more intelligence and more wisdom than coding, for example. Coding is dead. I'm sorry for those of you studying coding. My top architect engineer told me he hasn't written a line of code since August. Not even a single line of code. It's all being done by machines. He just prompts the engine, and the engine, he goes to lunch, comes back, the routines are written, he fixes them a little bit. So that world is gone. Coding is gone. So now it's important, if you studied coding, it's good you understand it, it's good you know how it works, because you'll be able to ask the machines better what to do. Tough question. For the next 2 years, very tough question. I mean, we have a niece who's a radiologist. Radiology is pretty much going away. I mean, the machines have proven to be so much better than humans at radiology. 2 years ago, it wasn't the case. Machines were still making mistakes, but right now, Imperial College in London is saying the accuracy of a machine reading an MRI or is so much bigger than a human, it will be impossible for humans to keep up with that. Now, we will need humans to sign off because of legal reasons for the next couple of years, but how long will this last? You know? And how many do you need? You know, like he was explaining, one person processing claims. I have a big investment in an insurance company, insurance brokerage company. Without AI, I need, for example, 5,000 people to process claims. Our estimate right now is that with AI, we will need 250 people. That's most of the team decimated. Again, by the way, you know, how do you decimate a team? Now it's our decision. So AI is, how do you take 4,000 people and tell them what to do? You know, it's very, very complex to do that the right way. But HR, for example, will be a good place to be because HR will need to figure out how to have companies, hospitals, work environments work with humans and machines. So I met the CEO of a big company in New York, Neuberger Berman, and he was telling me in their HR department, they now have people in HR managing humans, and they have people in HR managing agents. Like, who's this agent? Who created that agent? What is his ID? What decision did he make? Did he sell this portfolio or didn't sell this portfolio? So they have to track agents and humans. So this is a whole new area of how do you manage machines? There will be a lot of machines, some virtual, like agents, some physical, like robots. I was working with the UN on the drones that kill, for example. So they had to figure out, when does the drone decide to kill on its own? So if you tell the drone, this is a picture of Fadi, if you see him, you're authorized to kill him, right? Do we let the machines just make that decision? Because right now there are drones that are being used, especially in Ukraine and Russia, that are assassinating soldiers on their own. So they train the drones to, is this a man or a woman? Is he or she dressed in fatigues? Do they look like they have a gun? And if they do, shoot, right? So now we have machines, essentially, drones, making life or death decisions in war zones. All of this will require wisdom and rules and intelligence by good people that will make sure that these machines are being directed in the right way. So I think there will be work in HR, there will be work in policies and areas of creating rules for how the AI world that I think will persist and be important for us to pursue.
One follow-up. Junior question. Quantum computing, 4 or 5 years, it's supposed to even make AI obsolete.
Yeah.
Crack a whole bunch of things. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, for those of you who don't know, quantum computing is kind of the next revolution in how computing happens. And it is a quantum leap from where we are. So if you think these things are fast, I mean, this thing that we all have in our pocket is more powerful than the mainframes that used to be the size of this altar when I was in college back in 1980. You know, the huge mainframe. This is more powerful than the whole mainframe. Now, when quantum computing comes, multiply that by thousands again compared to this. We are going to enter. It is so powerful and fast that today most of our private information is protected by encryption. These encryption algorithms are very complex to crack. You and I, or most of us, would need years in today's computing power to crack an encryption code. Quantum computers will crack it in seconds. So they'll be able to break all the codes that make data private in the world. And so he knows, because he's in the field, that when quantum computing comes, it will change again massively the playing field where we're working. And we used to be 20 years away from quantum. We're now maybe 4 or 5 years away from these machines being available. And this is a big fight between China and the US, by the way. China and the US are fighting very hard on who gets there first with quantum. We're ahead for now, supposedly, but who knows? Who knows who will get there? And yes, that will change the playing field completely, because the machines will be so. Remember, the AI works on 3 things. It works on algorithms, data, and compute power. That's how AI works. So when I studied AI in the mid-'80s, my professor told me AI will get nowhere because the computing power was limited. We didn't have the internet, so there wasn't a lot of data, but we had the algorithms. We had the algorithms. We just didn't have the other 2 things. Now we have data aplenty. And by the way, just for those of you interested in this, data, I was just in Lisbon in Portugal at one of the biggest conferences of AI, and all the talk now is about the physicality of AI. AI today functions mostly on data on the internet. So it's not physical. It just takes data on the internet and gives you answers, right? But the physicality of the internet is when the internet will also see the world. So now all the cameras in the world that are sitting, watching the street, watching traffic, all this feed is being fed into AI engines now. So AI will not just be data, it'll be physical. It will be seeing things through satellites, through cameras, through meta glasses. Any physical piece of data in the world will be fed into the AI engines, and that's far more data than the internet even has. So they call this multimodal AI or physical AI, and that's the next phase. So when quantum computing comes, the ability to process all this data faster and make decisions faster than us, for sure faster than us, is what people fear as the moment they call superintelligence. Because now we will be intelligent and they will be superintelligent. And who will control the superintelligence and how we will maintain our balance of humanity in that superintelligence world, these are big questions we have yet to answer, all of us.
First one, let's say someone like me, I have like a year and a half, 2 years left in my degree. What am I supposed to do? Do I just keep going or is there like other courses that I can take that can help me elevate with AI? You want to become a plumber?
He has a year and a half, 2 years left in his degree, and he's asking, what do I do? Do I finish? Do I stop? Am I wasting my time?
I want to be an investment bank.
Yeah.
Investment bank or more in the private equity. But when I look at CEOs of those companies, for example, Jamie Dimon, when he's saying, he's been using AI for 12 years, and then he will be replacing a lot of those jobs with AI, that's scary.
Yeah, Abuna said it right a few minutes ago. I don't think these jobs will go away. There will just be less of them. I don't think these jobs will go away. I mean, I have a private equity firm, and I know that I will need people, but I'm needing far less people. In my prior firm, I had, for every, let's say, this is a measure, for every billion under management, I had maybe 30 people. And now for every billion under management, I have 1, maybe 2. So that's the shift that's happening, is that the jobs, I don't think will go away, but the hybrid world of machines and humans working together means that there will be less needs for humans. And of course, when you ask people in high-level positions, what does this mean? You know, what is this going to do to all of us? They say, well, we're all going to work less.
That's what brings me to my second question. I've seen a lot of the CEOs saying that instead of like a 5-day work week, it would be a 2-day, 3-day work week, and then that's what they proposed, that they would pay those extra 2 days for the people, let's say you laid off.
Well, you hope for decent CEOs to do that. The way business runs and capitalism runs, if they can get rid of all of you and keep just John, they will pay John very well and keep him. In other words, the capitalist system is not designed to be benevolent. It is designed to maximize profits. That's what capitalism is about. So if AI replaces many humans, I will be shocked if companies do anything but get rid of those who they don't need to maximize their profits, unless the government step in. There are rules, there are some safeguards, there are regulations. Unless there's a culture of CEOs doing the right thing, growing, as opposed to going away. And I worry today. I mean, very few CEOs in the Silicon Valley are what I would call, you know, conscious CEOs. There are very few. They're accountable. You know, we know them. Now, you know, we pray for them that they continue to do the right thing. But in general, the trend is, you know, be efficient. It's okay.
Well, let's say this can lead to a lot of like high employment and stuff, but other aside of that, is there anything that us end of their college careers that we can, like courses that we can take?
Yeah,
AI
to lift yourself above. Yes. First of all, embrace AI. You should spend time with it. You should understand it. I recommend highly for those of you who don't have an LLM to use Claude. Claude is a great LLM, and it's run by a very conscientious CEO, Amadeo, who's very focused on the safety of the LLM. So Claude is good. Use it intelligently, not just to ask it, you know, where's the nearest movie theater to go to watch a movie. Of course, you can use it for that too, but also learn to prompt it smartly. Understand prompt engineering, which is how do I talk to the engine? How do I get the answers I need? How do I know, how do I start discerning when the engine is making stuff up? Which you could. I mean, today I asked it 2 questions and I could tell it was just making stuff up. So learn and become knowledgeable about that, and then leverage it. Use it to do a few things, because if you apply to a job in finance, for example, or investment banking, and on your resume, you're, you know, standard, I went to school, I have good grades, you're like everybody else. But if on that resume you also say, I leveraged Claude to build an investment model, and that's what the investment model can do. So use it, become proficient in it too, because companies are looking for people who can come and know how to work with these engines in real time, in a hybrid environment. So that's my recommendation to you professionally. And that's how I'm hiring. You know, when I'm looking at people, I'm saying, is this person, you know, using ChatGPT to do whatever mundane things, or have they used it to do something intelligent in their work? So do lean in, you know, and lean in smartly, not just, yeah, I use Claude and I use ChatGPT, okay, everybody does. But I used it to do this in my field. In your school, if you're still in school, gobble any class you can find that involves AI. Take classes, even if you don't need them. Just take them, learn, be present, and take them for, what is it called? Just pass, no pass, whatever. Just take a class, be exposed to the field, it'll show that you're leaning in. And that's what employers are looking for, people leaning into that technology, that transformative technology. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you just specify a little bit more when you say you're leaving it to the people who think they have the critical, people who are developing it to kind of rely on their moral compass? What good would that do if it's a self-learning thing that is already let out in the world? It
Yeah.
doesn't matter what the product or values are.
Absolutely.
It's on information somewhere else.
Yes.
It's like Wikipedia when it came out. Anybody can write anything garbage on
Yes.
Wikipedia.
And it looked real. Yeah.
So now it's kind of self-learning. So how do you judge a self-learning?
This is an excellent question, by the way. If all of you have heard it, that Ihab is asking, the machine is learning on its own. So what good is it if I have the right moral compass and the machine doesn't, and it's kind of teaching itself and going on? So this is a misnomer. Many people in tech are shirking their responsibilities by saying the machine is learning on its own. The machines are being programmed. The original algorithms in these machines are man-made. We are agents in the business. Now, companies don't want us to believe that, but the reality is when kids killed themselves because ChatGPT was telling them how to commit suicide, you heard about that recently, right? They fixed it. ChatGPT no longer does it. So they are able to regulate the algorithms. They are able to create safety standards. Amadeo, when he left to create Claude, when he left ChatGPT, he told Sam Altman, the head of ChatGPT, publicly, he told him, Sam, we were spending on every 10 engineers we had, 4 were focused on safety out of 10. Now it's down to 1, which means you're really not investing in the safety of the algorithm. So that's why he went to create Claude, where he is investing 40% of his engineering time on safety. So it is possible for us to guide the machines. Now, of course, they will self-learn and advance, but there are boundaries. The algorithms offer boundaries. And that's why I'm hoping part of the purpose of the oath is that the people building these algorithms, sitting part of teams, have some consciousness that they have an agency over this. And you and I will not be able to see that because I stopped writing algorithms 40 years ago. You're a doctor, you don't do it. But there are many people here amongst our own youth who will be involved in writing and directing algorithms. So we have a responsibility. We have some agency. To a degree, it's not perfect, but to a degree we have agency. It's not completely machine-driven. How are we doing? One more question? What time is it? Yes, we'll take one, maybe 2 more questions.
So I always think 15, 20 years, maybe 30 years ahead. Now there's this movie coming out about AI judge.
An AI judge.
Yeah, here in the U.S. And this movie is basically the police officer apparently killed his wife, and he has 24 hours to prove that he's innocent before the judge takes
The case.
the case. I mean, just kills him, keeps him. But do you think that maybe later on, as you years from now, that our judges or the way the government, because you did mention that in Saudi they're using an AI minister, do you think that maybe this would be the world that we live in, that now we have an AI judge that makes decisions on its own, judges people?
Yeah. So the question is, he's talking about a movie, I don't know about it, where apparently someone is accused of committing a murder, and they have a day or so to figure out how to prove their innocence before they face an AI judge. And his question is, I mean, is this science fiction, or is this going to be the case? So the first thing I tell you is I don't know. Most people don't know. So I'd be making stuff up if I told you I knew. But I can, from the knowledge I have today and what I think is going to happen, there will be a lot of existing, especially legal activities that will be replaced by machines. Because remember, entry-level law students, when they start in the law firm, what do they do most of the time? They review cases. You know, they tell them, we got this case, go look at the case file, see if there's... This is something very easy to do for a machine. It can read every case ever done in the United States for the last 100 years in about 20 seconds and then be able to move forward. It's impossible for us to keep up with jobs that are about collating information, curating information, and finding patterns, because that's what machines do very well, finding patterns. Even GPs, doctors who are doing basic GP work, if a machine can read every single doc's report for the last 100 years and be able to, the head of the medical school at UC San Francisco, which is a big medical school, was saying the ability of the algorithms right now to really look at patterns in somebody's file and look at every other person with a similar pattern and actually tell you what it may be is remarkable. Now, a judgment is different from a pattern recognition. So there's pattern recognition, but then somebody needs to make a judgment. And I think most humans, at least that I know, will want good judgment, especially related to health or to life and death matters in a court of law. So I still think that our humanity will play a big role in these decisions, in these final judgmental decisions. Do I give him this medicine or not? Do I judge him to go to jail or not? I think we will have a role in that. The question is, what is the role? How will it be blended with machines? And who will have ultimate power? Will machines have enormous power and be able to take over the world? I think that's science fiction. A lot of people say, oh, machines will take over the world. I think that's science fiction. After all, we can always turn off the electricity. They need power. So we have agency at that level. Is this helpful, or am I depressing you? A little bit of both. You get the last word. Oh, one more from this side. Who had, you had your hand up? Okay, he'll go first and then you go last, if that's okay. Please.
What is the ultimate goal? What is the ultimate purpose of all this? I don't know if I came in late. I don't know if you covered that
Yeah.
already, but
No, that's a good question. What is all of this for?
yeah, when everyone, not everyone, a lot of people are out of, by the way, I work in AI, so
Yeah.
I contribute, but then what?
Yeah. Power, remember I said man is always searching for power and admiration. Man is seeking power and admiration. Silicon Valley leaders want power and admiration. The pursuit of maximum power leads to things that are not always coming from a good place. And I to answer Ihab a second time, I'm a great believer in human agency. God created us for a purpose. And we just cannot, I cannot believe as a scientist that science was not created for our good. We just need to have good people who can direct this power, because it is powerful. So man has always created things to become more efficient, to become more powerful, to make more food for his family or more money for his family. That's human nature. And AI is just one new thing that man created. The only difference with AI, unlike any tool man has created before AI, is that most tools we've created to date were tools for us to use. This is the first time we're creating a tool that will become smarter than us, faster than us, and more knowledgeable, with big quotes, about facts and Cartesian thinking than us. So, if anything, now putting my optimistic hat for all of you as one of you, if anything, this purifies our role to a higher level as Christians. We now need to see where is God in all of this? So it almost puts an underlining importance for all of us who are here in this house, who know how He guides us, how He created us. We have an added responsibility in a world where things are getting dehumanized, where bosses are going to decide, yeah, let me get rid of all these people because I can save money. Oh, let me make these decisions because AI can do them better than humans that are whining all the time. There will be a lot of dehumanizing of the planet. And we need to remember that our job is to divinize the planet, is to bring God to the planet. And the divinity avails itself through our humanity. That's our job. And if we forget that and get lost in ChatGPT being able to do things faster than me, fine, okay, but there is more to speed, there is more to money, there is more to power that comes from our knowledge of God's presence in our lives. And so we have an added responsibility right now. An added responsibility. You go last.
It's okay, you're answering to the question.
I did. We did a double answer. Okay.
It's gonna be, so AI is gonna replace a lot of our jobs, probably all of them, because computers are just better at everything than humans, besides, technical hands-on work. So with that in mind, how do we replace our want for money with a want for bringing a more human moral outcome of everyone else?
Big question you're asking. What a great way to end this evening. I'll repeat a little bit what I think I heard, and correct me if I'm wrong. But as machines take over a lot of human activity, okay, and our seeking as humans to do activities to make money or to make a living become less and less, what is it we need to be doing as humans? What is the role of man? And I think you're right, I answered this. The role of man becomes even more focused on bringing God to to the world. Just like the colors, remember Wizard of Oz? Our job is to color the world, to bring Him, not to escape the world, but to divinize the world, to be in the world, but not from the world, but to bring Him to the world. And that becomes our role, because there will be a lot of suffering. There will be a lot of suffering. Transitions are very difficult. The transition when the steam engine was created at the beginning of the 20th century was very hard. Many people went penniless, and the barons, the oil barons and the railway barons became very wealthy, which is kind of what we're seeing now with Silicon Valley wealth. Elon Musk was offered $1 trillion bonus. $1 trillion bonus? It's remarkable when you think about it. And meanwhile, some people can make ends meet. We know many of them. So something is off as we enter this revolution. So there will be difficulties. There will be suffering. And we're entering that phase of... So us as Christians have a responsibility. We have a very important responsibility to divinize humanity, to help people see through these difficult times, and to make sure that our church, our home, our communities, our oasis, where people can come and find comfort. That's where our role will be as we move forward. Now, once that transition is over, I don't know how the world will look like, but I think we are in a transition mode, I would say for at least the next 5 years, where we're going to see massive transition. Universities, most kids will be telling their parents, why are you sending me to 4 years of university? Why are you taking a $500,000 loan to send me to a school? I don't know that what I'm learning will be useful even. So these are transition times, and people will not know where to go. All the best to every one of us, but let's stand together. Let's be a family. Let's support each other as we go through these changes. Let's be available to each other, because not everyone has all the answers, not me, not anybody. But together, we have the wisdom of Christ in our midst. So let's remain one as we face these changes. Anyway, thank you for Sorry. Who? AI? Yeah, I mentioned earlier that I'm not convinced that AI, the almost apocalyptic imagination that AI will take over the world, I'm not convinced that's a scenario that will happen. We studied even various scenarios of that, and there are, at least at the US government level, there are some very important safeguards put in place for this not to happen. Same in China. So I don't think these apocalyptic ideas, they sound good, they're great for movies, but I don't think it will happen. I think we have more agency than we give ourselves credit. We actually have a lot of agency as humans. We control a lot of the machines. We control the power. Remember, all these machines need power. We control the power, right? So very difficult for me to imagine them taking over, at least in the next 5 to 10 years. So, okay? Anyway, thank you all for welcoming me. I appreciate it. Appreciate it. Thank you. Should we pray together?
Thank you very much. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. Make us worthy, O Lord, to pray thankfully, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. Christ Jesus our Lord, thine the kingdom, power, and glory forever. Now the love of God the Father, the grace of his only begotten Son, our Lord God and Savior Jesus Christ, the gift and the communion, the Holy Spirit, we all live in peace, and the peace of the Lord be with you. You're as usual going to the center, right?
Yes, but before we go, I want everyone to scan the QR code, and also we're gonna have to take a group picture. So please take a seat, everyone. Thank you very much. For just a couple minutes, please. Yeah, I just want to know what topics you guys like to hear. Maybe suggest a speaker or 2 or 3 or 5. No. I'm going to scan. It really shouldn't take long, and I'm looking at everyone here. Take out your phone. Wasim, I don't see you with your phone out. Tiffany. Everyone. Yeah. Okay. Yes, you are. Marley. And then you don't have to put your name if you don't want
want your name to be on there. You could put any name you like. You could pick a saint. Pick a saint. Please, something appropriate. Thirty seconds and we'll get up for a picture. Who would like to take the picture of all of us? No one. Crickets.